Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you might be, arm wrestling people. Hope you're having a very wonderful Sunday. Welcome to the All Time Prime Fantasy League, the second to last episode in all probability. So, very exciting. We're coming down to the end here. And we have a very special guest today with us. The founder of the armwrestlingarchives.com, a website I personally use a ton. Really a great resource if you want to learn more about arm wrestling. He's also been tearing up the scene in grip sport lately, doing really well there, and I'm really lucky to have him here on the stream. Please welcome Mr. Eric Roussin. Yeah, Eric, you're very welcome, and we're very lucky to have you here. I'm sure the people in the know who you are. The people that are deep in the arm wrestling scene know who you are, and how knowledgeable you are. So it's a real treat to have you on for these matches. I think you can offer a really good insight here into some of these. Yeah, I should be good here. Audio, let me know in the chat if the audio is fine. I see TOS Move. How you doing, Verbeer? JC. Usually we do eight matches per episode. This time it's going to be 6 matches. So that does mean we can maybe take our time a little more and look at chat every once in a while and answer some of your questions there if you have them. Other than that, let's take a quick look at the brackets together and see what we have in store for today. Let me pull them up for you guys here. Here we go. I think it's a good idea to start with the losers round today, with a very exciting first match here. A match that unfortunately I don't think we'll be seeing anytime in the near future again, but it's Alexey Voyevoda versus Richard Lupkes.
Oh, it's a lot of fun when we get down to these last few rounds. Everyone's tough.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
Quick reminder here, you guys decide who will be the winner of this tournament, who will be the winner of each of these matches. As I'm typing up the poll here in the chat, you guys will be voting on who wins this match. That's what it comes down to. So get your votes in the chat. I'm gonna put about 5 minutes on the clock. If it's a real one-sided match, we can end the match sooner. We'll call the flash pin there. So let me pull up Voyevoda and Mr. Lupkes to the table here. Here we are. So, chat, who do you have? And Eric, who do you think wins this match or would win this match in their all-time prime?
Right. This is a tough one. There are some matches today that I think I'll have strong opinions on. This one this one's closer in my mind. So I always like to think when was their peak? For Richard Lupkes, I look to 1989. 1989, I don't know for sure, but everything I've seen, I don't think he lost a single match that year. In 1989, he got wins on John Brzenk, Gary Goodrich, pretty much everyone. And every match I've seen, I haven't seen the footage of all his matches from that year, but every match I saw was over in an instant. So he won the WAF Worlds that year. He was the number 1 ranked arm wrestler for that year on the planet. Mm-hmm. So, as if anyone isn't aware, so Lupkes sort of basically reached the very top of the sport in the late 80s, early 90s, won the WAF Worlds 89-90, and then he retired from the sport. We didn't see him for 17 years, and then it's sort of too bad because him and Brzenk in those years were going back and forth, and who knows, how strong he would have been in the 90s. Right. But when he did come back, although he was already in his early 50s, and he was almost just as dominant. I mean, he wasn't the very best when he returned, but he was, among the very strongest, definitely top 5 or 10.
Right. This would have been in like around 2008 or something like that.
Yeah, 2007, 8 is when he came back. 2008, He was in really good shape. But yeah, 2007 all the way to 2000, I don't know, 13, he was very, very, very strong. The thing about Lupkis is he's always been a powerhouse, like super, super strong. But he never really learned how to arm wrestle. He never pulled with a club. He didn't have anyone around him in Minnesota. So he would just be awesome just based on his brute strength. But if you look at how he sets up, he's not the most savvy, technically speaking, because in those years he didn't even need to. Voyevoda, I think people would agree his peak was right. Once again, he reached the very top and then he left the sport. But 2004 Zloty is what a lot of people look towards for his peak.
Yeah.
So I think that 2004, yes, he won. He won convincingly over Brzenk. But if you look, there's a few factors that I don't know if everyone's aware.
Sure.
A lot of his fellow countrymen in that Zloty tour were basically laying down to him. They were like, they weren't even trying against him so that he'd be fresher for the overall for against Brzenk and all that. Whereas Brzenk was in the 209s, he had monster matches with Tarasavakin, Ron Bath. You know, it was a much tougher road for him. And although that was peak Voyevoda, that is not peak Brzenk. A 209-pound Brzenk in 2004 was when he was even thinking of retiring from the sport. As anyone who's seen Pulling John knows, that is not his peak. And if you look at in the final, outside of the straps, it actually was close. They slipped, but it looked like there was some vulnerability there in the hand and wrist. One, they got tied in the straps. Yes, Voyevoda won pretty convincingly. But another thing that makes me question just how strong was he? Just 3 weeks after that, I'm not sure if you've seen this video, but Voyevoda competed at the WAF Worlds in South Africa. And in the finals, he faced a 19-year-old Andrei Pushkar. And Pushkar gave him a match tougher than anything he had at Zloty. And that's baby Pushkar. Like Pushkar from there went on to become much, much stronger. So it sort of makes me wonder, you know, that peak Voyevoda, how much of a peak really was it? And so I feel like I feel Voyevoda is a better technical puller, but I think I would give the edge to Richard in pure strength. And given, you know, Lupkis is also very fast, I give a slight edge. My just hunch is that I would have bet on peak Lupkis. That's how I see it, but this is one that I see is close.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I largely agree there. I think Lupkis would, in the end, probably take it down on strength. I think we've talked about this before on the Fantasy League, where maybe there's a little bit of something called maybe legend status bias, kind of, where Voyevoda had such an explosive entrance to the scene that people almost remember him as kind of a mythical figure in a way. And I think it's really hard to evaluate him based on the short period he was active in the sport compared to some of the other guys that were around longer, like Richard Lupkis. So yeah, in the end, I do think Richard would take it. And it seems like Chad is agreeing with us there, with the match ending now at the 5-minute mark, with Richard Lupkis getting 63% of the votes over Voyevoda. So a relatively close match, and I think you were spot on there with your assessment as it shows in chat. So yeah, well done, Richard Lupkis is moving on. Let's take a look at the brackets here, see what that does to them, and which match is coming up. So yeah, Richard Lupkis moving on. Alexey Voyevoda, unfortunately, out of the tournament now. And Richard Lupkis will be facing either of these two people next week, which is our next match, in Travis Bagent versus Matt Mask, your countryman.
Yeah.
And another interesting match, I think. In a way, I think Matt Mask is lucky to have made it this far into the tournament, if I'm going to be completely candid here, I don't want to put down your countryman there, but he got voted in at number 21. So yeah, he was the 21st in the rankings as far as votes went to be voted into the tournament. And I see here he won against Ryan Bowen in the losers round 2 after yeah. So yeah, Prime Matt Mask versus Prime Travis Bagent. Interesting.
Yeah, so I also think this is a mismatch. I think this is probably not even a 5-minute. We have to leave. Sure. But I think of Bagent. I mean, what was his peak? I think a lot of there's a few different moments. I think 2016 WA finals where he beat Dave Chafee. That's probably, a good probably example at his peak. And remember, he beat Devon Larratt at the Worlds in 2003. 2005, Travis was on fire. He had wins. He won Zloty. He won wins over Brzenk. He had a lot of, so 2003, 2005, but I think 2016 is probably the one I think is when he was at his peak. Mask is just, to me, he's not a super heavyweight, so he's at a disadvantage in this particular tournament. His peak years, I think, is probably 2018 WAL Supermatch Series.
Okay.
Supermatch victory over Marcio, Nick Zinna. He got a 1 win off Jerry Cadaret, so he was on a roll there. 2017 and 2019, that's sort of what I see as peak Matt Mask. But they're both top rollers, and that's Travis's game. Like, I just don't see Travis losing this match. Yeah. They both have the same ace, but Travis is better, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think so too. Even if we're talking about the right hand, I know Travis is mostly known for his dominant left hand, but people often forget Travis was at one point arguably the number 1 right hand too. Arguably. Yeah. Wins
over Devon, wins over Brzenk, wins over a lot of people. So,
for sure.
Yeah.
On a little bit of a tangent here, what do you think of Travis's comeback? Do you think it'll last for a long time, or?
Well, I think he's finally, like him, he's always been motivated by money, and now I think he's seeing that there's starting to be some decent money for the top guys.
Right.
So I think it's extremely exciting, and it's very cool that he won in convincing fashion yesterday. So, I can he get to the very top? I don't know, but I think he has a very good chance of getting near the top. It's very exciting. I just hope he sticks with it, because I know he's had some of these. He's sort of always on the fence, but I don't know. Yesterday was very. Gave me a sense that maybe it will happen this time.
Yeah, same here. I was very excited seeing him pull again, and seemingly also having a good time, which is an important factor there. So yeah, really excited. As far as this match goes, though, I'd have to agree. Kind of a mismatch, like I said. Matt Mask, I think, is very lucky to have made it into the tournament, but then again, Ryan Bowen is in the tournament, which is also pretty telling, which means that Matt Mask, kind of makes sense that he made it too. Let's see what people in the chat think, because it's kind of closer than I would have expected. Right now, we're at a 67 or 69. It just changed for Travis Bagent winning the match. So yeah, not that close, but not without a chance here. I think for sure Matt Mask is one of those people that's always going to be a crowd favorite.
He's there's no questioning his popularity. He's a fun guy. I don't think he can compete at that very, very, very top level.
Yeah,
with the super heavyweights.
True. Yeah, very true. He would do well, maybe pulling a little lower. Jacobin says, probably too much for Matt. Yes, indeed. Gertillen says, went with Matt, but I can see it going either way. Interesting. Muscle Bike says, Travis is mainly lefty, don't forget. Wild Horse is righty. Yeah, that's certainly true. But yeah, when you're talking about Prime, I think it's pretty safe to say that Travis Bagent was at a very high level, even on the right. Bulls Deep Hook says, Matt is underrated. He's a monster. Yeah, he certainly is. I couldn't dream of beating Matt on the table. I'm sure he would beat nearly everyone you put in front of him. And I would certainly still call him elite in his weight class, for sure.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, not to take anything away from Matt, but it seems like chat largely agrees with us here, and Travis Bagent is taking the win, closing in at the 5-minute mark, with Matt Mask having 1/3 of the votes. So yeah, still 33% of you thought Matt Mask could take it, possibly. Muscle Bike says Matt smokes cigarettes, so he's harder. That's an interesting take. He might certainly look harder. Let's take a look what that does to our brackets and what our next match is here. Travis Bagent, well done. I think to no one's surprise, takes the match and will be facing Richard Lupkes next week, which will be interesting. Right now, our next match is Andrei Pushkar versus Gennady Kvigvinya. That's a match we'll unfortunately never be able to see, but still an interesting one to think about, potentially. What are your thoughts, Eric, on this match?
So, Gennady's peak, I guess you have to look to his win over Devon last year. I think that's Gennady. Gennady's won a whole bunch of WAF Worlds. He's won a lot of titles, but I think for him to beat Devon in Devon's sort of perfect year says a lot. So I'm thinking that version of Gennady was his peak, whereas Pushkar's peak would be the years sort of leading up just before he died, 2005, 15, 16, 17. Pushkar he was seemingly on a different level. Like he was demolishing everyone in those years. He won, he won the big events at that time, and there was no really Siplankov sort of was not active at that time. So if you look, if anyone notices that the 2016 Zloty, so the Zloty Tour was the big pro tournament for 15 or 20 years in Europe. That was the big double elimination tournament every year. If you look at the 2016 results, you'll see that in the super heavyweight class, Gennady's placed ahead of Andre. And if you're wondering why, you can just check the YouTube video. Andre just laid down. He saved it. He's like, there's only a bit of money in the regular class. I'm focusing on the overall and the absolute. And sure enough, Pushkar dominated the absolute division. So he just made a call. So if you see the results without seeing the video, you might be confused, but he just played it was a tactical move.
Right. That's interesting.
I just think Pushkar, the way he was beating people in those years, it was just overwhelming his opponent. So I just think, as strong as Gennady was and is, I just don't think he would have been able. I think Pushkar from that period would have been too much. So I pick Pushkar in this matchup.
Yeah. I think I feel the same way, although it's a very close one for me personally. Just because it is so hard to assess. I don't really know if the field in how long would it be? About 6 years, 6-7 years. I don't know how much the field has evolved and moved past that level. So yeah, it's really hard to call. That would lead me a little bit more towards Gennady. But yeah, it's a very close call for me, and I think chat here agrees with 50% of the votes going to both athletes. So yeah, it's very close right now. Be sure to get your votes in, guys. Open the little chat box if you're on mobile, and you'll see the option to vote right there. But yeah, it's going back and forward here between Andrei Pushkar and Gennady. Really interesting. Xay in chat says Pushkar is too good in tournament formats. Yeah, might be the case, although Gennady has a lot of experience in tournaments too. He pulled in the WAF for a long time, I believe. So White Wolf says Gennady, in my opinion. Because it's one round, I would say Pushkar, but in a super match, Gennady, says Alexey. Yeah, I could see that. Pushkar is very explosive. It's very hard from the start. So that could take, Gennady off guard a little bit, maybe. Hard to say. Gert says, Eric persuaded me. So there's a vote for Pushkar. Very close still, with 55% of the votes going to Pushkar, one of the closest matches we've had here in the Fantasy League, for sure. Unfortunate. I can't help but think every time be reminded that it's really unfortunate we're not going to see Pushkar in action again. I would have loved to see what he could have done with the current super heavyweights. Let's see here. Xay says Gennady said his shape against Dennis was very, very good. So yeah, that was his peak or close to that. Yeah, I can definitely see that for sure. Like Eric said, like Devon was on such a tear that year, such a golden year in his career, that Gennady getting a win on him is extremely impressive. Get your vote in now. Yes, indeed. Get your vote in now. Well said, Gert. We're closing in on a 5-minute mark here with currently 55% of the votes going to Andrei Pushkar. So yeah, I'm excited to see if something will change in the next 30 seconds that we have left here in these 5 minutes. Definitely a very close match. Yeah, that'll do it. In about 5 seconds, I don't see any major changes happening. And there we are, 5-minute mark with Andrei Pushkar very narrowly taking the win over Gennady Kvikvinya, which means if we take a look at the brackets here and declare our winner in Andrei Pushkar, that he'll be facing in the next round either Vitaly Laletin versus or Artyom Morozov, which is our next match. An interesting one. That we could see on the right at some point, I think.
I hope we do.
Yeah, me too. I hope you do too.
I mean, this is a tough one.
Yeah.
Sure. Laletin, I think his peak, it's got to be now or 2023. I mean, he had back-to-back wins at the AMC tournaments, and they were pretty dominant. So he beat Rivaz Lutidze in August, East versus West last year. He did lose to Hermes in a close war in December, and then more recently he lost to Chafee 2 years ago, but then this year he made it in a war, and now this year he won pretty dominantly. So he seems to be in stronger form than he was 2 years ago, and so I think the strongest version of Laletin is likely now.
Right.
Morozov, it's probably the same thing. I mean, look, in 2022, Morozov beat Chafee 3-2, and Laletin, that's the year Laletin lost 3-4 to Chafee. So both extremely close at that time. However, Morozov lost to Prudnik 2 years ago.
Sure, yeah.
He beat Rivaz also later that year. Morozov lost to Georgie last year, 3-0. I don't remember if that's when he was sort of not in.
Yeah, I think so. I think he was like on a soup diet or something.
Right,
like that.
Yeah. So you can't take too much of that into account. But anyway, they see it very, very close. But my hunch says Laletin. That's my feel, but this is one that to me is also very, very, of the ones we've looked at so far, this is the one I feel is the closest. What do you think?
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Like I said, it's one of those matches that hopefully happens very soon. I'd love to see it. And I do think it's closer than maybe some people think, because my hunch is, and I guess it's kind of backed up by chat here right now, that a lot of people will put Laletin ahead of Morozov by a significant margin. But I think it could get closer than people might think, because Morozov is one of those pullers that sometimes seemingly pulls a win out of nowhere, it seems, and comes back after getting two losses, when I thought he was completely out of it. So I think he might surprise people there, versus Laletin. Right now, it's 75% of the votes going to Vitali here. So yeah, people are quite convinced. But then again, not everyone has voted. I see there's way more people actually watching than are voting. So if you can, take a second there, guys, and cast your votes. It'll make it more fun and more exciting if we get a larger sample size, so to speak. White Wolf coming in with his... Yeah, sorry, Eric, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you look, luckily they've had a lot of common opponents over the past years, and if you look at those matches, the results are very similar. So that's why I think it's likely close if they're both in shape.
Yeah.
But Levan, just his size and his height, he is intimidating, right? So I understand why. I think most of us have a hunch that Levan would probably come out on top.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Eric coming in with the common sense and actually looking at matches, actually looking at the empirical data.
Right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. White Wolf says, using his monthly member message here, saying, "Great to see the arm historians." Ow, ow. Yeah, Eric, quite famously known as the arm wrestling historian, for way longer than I've been around. So yeah, Eric, definitely the OG there. Kazazuri says, "Sup, mountain bike, White Wolf and Gert." Kazazuri, good to have you in the chat. Welcome. Kazazuri, one of my training partners. Good to see you. KL says, "I just liked Laletin more, but Morozov seems more versatile and has good endurance." Yeah, good points. Verbeer, how you doing? Says hi. It's not an endurance tournament, says Hertillen. Yeah, it is. Best of one, that's true. Zay says, similar to previous match, we have one very explosive puller against a puller who has great endurance and versatility. In one round match, I think Vitali. Yeah, I can see that definitely playing part here. Like I said before, I think Morozov is really good at making comebacks and adapting and stuff like that. So, yeah, that could definitely play into Vitali winning there. Because Azuri says, "I hope everyone had a great weekend." I hope so too. We get to bend arms again. True. That's always a good weekend when you get to do that. This is certainly a historic show today, says Muscle Bike. Yes, very historic. But yeah, without joking, I do think Eric has like a very deep insight into these things. So I do think the level of accuracy we can hit on this episode is higher than it usually would be, because I have made errors throughout these shows, which I will be addressing in the last show there, in kind of the rundown of the entire event. But yeah, definitely very lucky to have Eric here. That being said, our match has ended at the 5-minute mark, with Vitali taking it with 60% of the votes going to Vitali. So close match 60. There.
Did you say 60?
Yes,
so it went down. It went down a bit then. Okay, because he was leading earlier. Okay, interesting.
Yep. Vitali was leading very significantly, but then yeah, it got close in the end there.
Okay, cool.
Yep. So well done there, Vitali. Very close. Unfortunately, Artyom Morozov will be leaving us. I think that's the last match of the losers round there. We have 2 matches left over on the A side. Leighton takes this match. Artyom Morozov will be leaving us, and Vitali will be facing the legendary Andrei Pushkar next week, that's also a match I'm looking forward to. But right now, more pressing matters with one of the people that didn't get a loss yet. Both of these guys didn't get one loss in the tournament, hence they're on the winning side, in John Brzenk and Hermes Gasparini. Getting down to the big matches now, the really big matches. What are your thoughts on this one, Eric?
Yeah, this is another tough one.
Yep.
And I know we all have sort of we see Brzenk in this, he's the GOAT, right? So I you have to think about when, I see Brzenk's peak as 2006. A lot of people agree. Sort of the spring of 2006, he was just a different animal. He was about 240 pounds and strong, like really, really strong. And the thing is, his peak was probably only what it needed to be. He was so active. He would, on average, hit 8 to 10 tournaments every year for years and years and years. So it's not like Levan today, where you compete once a year.
Yeah.
And you wonder if Brzenk had, the chance at these monetary prizes that we see today, and could only compete, and if he wanted to only compete once or twice a year, I think it would have been interesting to see. I just think we saw his peak. I think his peak was 2006, but who knows? Maybe it could have even been higher. I don't know. But
Sure.
it's while Gasparini's peak is probably 2023. I'm guessing. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the one who made Levan look human, right? So
Yep.
that, I'm guessing, that specific match, he demolished Cataret, like, very convincingly. He beat Larratt, and that was a little harder, but he did beat him. And yes, he lost to Devon. So Devon last year, I think we realized Devon's peak is 23 Devon, or 23, 24 Devon.
Yeah.
And he did lose there. But as strong as Gasparini is, and yes, you have to consider is the level of today overall, I'm sure, is stronger than it was in 2006. I just think Brzenk's hand just may have had just enough to take Gasparini's risk. Peak Brzenk. So I give my hunch says Brzenk, but I can definitely see how some might think it's Gasparini. So this is another very tough one. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, agreed. Very tough one. Also one of those matches, of course, as almost all these matches are now, that I wished we could have seen Big John. And like you said, and that's a very good point, I think John, if arm wrestling was as big as it is now in a way, or as potentially lucrative as it is now, back when John was at his peak could have been higher. I do agree there. He would have been more motivated, and I think a motivated John Brzenk is definitely the most dangerous John Brzenk. It's also a rarity, I think, a very motivated John Brzenk.
Right.
But yeah, that's a tough one. It boils down to how much has the field evolved since John's peak, right? I think that's the key question here.
Right.
Does John stand a chance? Big John stand a chance against any of the top 5 super heavyweights right now? It's so difficult because, like you also hinted at, there's a lot of emotion in there too, because we hold John in such a high regard, especially Big John, the way he dominated. I don't know. I think Hermes could be potentially too much for John. Big Hermes could potentially overwhelm John the first round. In a super match, would it be different? Maybe. Maybe Big John would be close enough in strength that he could adapt, change his style a little, or work Hermes' endurance a little. But I do think Hermes might take it in this format. As hard as that is to say. Chat, though, is disagreeing with me, clearly. But 67% of you right now think John Brzenk would take the win over Hermes. A Big John would take a big Hermes.
Can you tell me, I don't know if this is easy or if this is in front of you, but can you tell me in the first 2 rounds of this fantasy tournament, who did Brzenk face and who did Gasparini face?
Sure, let's take a look. Chat can follow along here. So the top 8 people voted into the tournament, just with the number of people entering and to get it to work out. We had to give the top 8 people a bye the first round.
Yeah.
So both John Brzenk and Hermes Gasparini received a bye the first round and moved on. Then John beat Morozov in the second round, and Hermes beat Michael Todd in that same round.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are tough matches. Both those are tough matches. I was hoping one of them would have been easier.
Yeah, but they're both really tough matches indeed. And then John went on to face Travis Bajent in the next round. And Hermes went on to face Voyevoda. So yeah, there you go. Both coming out victorious
at least the one thing is that with that chain of events, and Brzenk, obviously Brzenk was given the win against Travis. He would have won fast against Travis. You know, there wouldn't have been a long match. Whether he would have won or lost with Travis, it wouldn't have been long. So if he won, I assume he won fast. So maybe he would have been a bit fresher for this round.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it seems arriving at the 5-minute mark here that John Brzenk, unsurprisingly, maybe takes the victory over Hermes Gasparini with 67% of the votes for John there. So yeah, quite a convincing win. But it seems that John will be a favorite moving on in the tournament here, which is to be expected, of course. So let's put our results into the brackets here. John Brzenk taking the win over Hermes Gasparini. So yeah, arriving at our last match of the night, a very exciting one too. In my opinion, two legends in the sport. I know that term gets thrown around a lot, but I think in this case, it's certainly applicable. With Devon Larratt versus Denis Siplenkov, both in their peak.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
So I think we can agree that Devon's peak is the current or 2023, 2004 version. I think most people would agree with that. Siplenkov's peak was about 10 years ago. I think it's around 2013. You know, he won the Russian A1 absolute category, won the Zloty absolute category. It would have been interesting to see where he was at in 2018 when he was about to pull Pushkar, and then the accident happened. Yes. Because from what I remember, at least his gym lifts were at all-time highs, Siplenkov's lifts. So maybe he was at his very strongest. The day that he pulled Devon left hand, maybe his right hand was also a peak form. It's hard to say. Sure. He didn't actually pull right hand. But that version of Siplenkov, yes, Devon beat Siplenkov last year, but we know this is not the same Siplenkov. This is a much lighter version, post-health issues. It's Devon still, yes, Devon was never on the losing side, and you know, he didn't lose any matches, but Siplenkov's holding power was pretty incredible. And my hunch is that similar as to how Levan is today, although I think we all agree Levan, there's a reason he's excluded from this tournament. I think most of us do agree that he is the strongest of all time at peak form. But I see that Siplenkov is right, very similar in terms of that level of dominance. And I just have a hard time picturing Devon beating that version of Siplenkov. So as much as I like Devon, I just think 2013 Siplenkov would have been just a bit too much.
Yeah. I think
now, what are the rules here? Are we like, is this like if this was I can't remember what rule set, like if this is like a WAF World Championships, then I definitely think Siplenkov.
East versus West style rules. Yeah.
East versus West. So it's not as strict as we see in terms of
somewhere between WF and WL, right? I would say.
Nevertheless, I still predict
Siplenkov. Okay, interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting take. And I can definitely see that happening. Yeah, I think a lot of people Well, that was my original thought. Now looking at the poll, I see it's a lot closer than I thought, but I would have thought Devon would quite comfortably take the win here, seeing as the most recent Devon is definitely stronger than the most recent Siplenkov, and a lot of recency bias, as we know, plays into how we vote here. But yeah, it seems that with 56% of the votes right now going to Devon, it's a very close match, and I can definitely see it being a close match. I do think that Devon maybe won't be able to exploit as much of his how do I say this, as much of his advantages that he would normally take over Siplenkov in a one match format, like a 1-round format.
Right.
So yeah, I do think it's a close one, and Dennis might get the win here. I do agree there. Maybe I can see it happening. I don't know if a lot of people that have recently gotten into the sport are fully aware of how dominant Dennis was, and versus what kind of people he won and how dominantly he won. But yeah, big Dennis is definitely crazy. It's hard to face for any arm wrestler, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, how much did Siplenkov weigh when he pulled Devon last year? Like 270, 260? I don't know.
Yeah, but, if that even.
Yeah, he was like 310, solid muscle, like with no fat on it. Like that's like 50 pounds bigger.
That's crazy. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Dennis is such a weird human, the way he's built, and I mean weird in the most positive way I can think of. He's such a, I don't know, he's just built differently.
Yeah. And by 2013, he had become a more technical. He had worked on his wrist. He became more technical, and he was already developing a sort of a king's move type lock. So he was very tough to beat.
Yeah, for sure. Chat, I'll say this now. We haven't arrived at the 5-minute mark yet, but I'll let this run a little longer, this match, just because it is so close and it is the last match of the day. I'll let this run for like a minute or two overtime there. But right now, Devon is sitting at 55% of the votes. More votes have come in, but the results have remained unchanged for the most part. If you haven't voted already, get your votes in there. And let's take a look at what some of the people in the chat have to say about this one, because I'm really interested in reading these. KL says, I think people forget that there is a big difference between prime and current Dennis. Yeah, very true. I hinted at it a little before. Certainly true. Arm historian out here body shaming, says here Dylan. Yeah, I did say weird, but I truly meant it in a positive way. Yeah, I think Dennis is just his physique is something to behold. Really impressive there. Justin B says Dennis in his prime wins. Okay, it seems like Devon Larratt is kind of running away with it a little bit now, with 61% of the votes going to him. But it's a close one. A couple of votes can change the tide here. So definitely get your votes in if you haven't already. Let's take a look here. Definitely voting for Dennis. Devon's forearm. Might be the case. How you doing, Devon's forearm? Another content creator there. Spacey, how you doing? I see you're in chat too. So yeah, I don't think Levan struggled there. He had to think for a moment, says Kazazuri, but that's probably referring to something we said earlier. Let's take a look what other people are saying. It seems that, yeah, the vote is currently staying about the same, with 61% of the votes going to Devon. Pretty close. We're nearing the 7-minute mark, so I will end it at 7 minutes. Yeah, unless something monumental changes here, I think Devon Larratt will take it. And we'll be facing John, right? I think so. I'll end it there, guys. Devon, well done. Definitely another crowd favorite. Let's take a look at the brackets together. Yeah, so Devon Larratt taking the win over Denis Siplenkov, very well done. Going to face John Brzenk in the semifinals. Yeah, that's really tough. I think that's gonna be a hard one for chat, for sure. But yeah, the loser of that match. Let's take a look. Did I enter all this correctly? Yeah, I think so, right? So yeah, it'll be an interesting couple of rounds. I'm very excited to see what happens next. I think we had good matches here today. Nearing the end here, the matches are more exciting. The Ryan Bowens and the Matt Masks of the tournament have kind of exited by now, and the matches are getting really close. So yeah, I did enjoy it a lot. Eric, I want to thank you once again for being here. It was great.
Oh, you're very welcome.
If you want to plug anything, go ahead. I know I want to emphasize this once again. People go to the Arm Wrestling Archives, the armwrestlingarchives.com. You can find it really easily. Go directly there or just look for it on Google. Awesome resource. Seriously, a lot of work went into it. I think people are discovering it more and more because I see it referenced a lot, and I see some people literally copying parts of it and putting it in a video. So that does mean it's getting discovered more. So yeah, at least that's a positive to that. But definitely go check that out.
Yeah. So I've spent a lot of time developing, like researching the development, a lot of the same type of stuff you make in your videos. So the history of certain organizations, and I have a lot of lists in terms of my opinions on, top pullers through the years. So there's a lot of interesting stuff as well. And I haven't added a lot to those sections, but I do continue to keep the site updated with results from major tournaments. So you won't find a more complete website in terms of results from major tournaments throughout history. So, all the East versus today, all the East versus West, all the King of the Table, all the MC, all of the big tournaments, they get uploaded. The results get uploaded. So there you have your one source of information, and there's a search functionality. So if you want to search somebody and see which tournaments they won or how they placed, it's great for that.
Yeah, I know for me personally, as a content creator, it's an invaluable resource. For getting my timeline straight, it's just amazing. Also on a personal level, I know if I have a question about something throughout arm wrestling history, I can hit Eric up, and within an amazing time span, an amazingly short time span, Eric will get back to me with the entire story plus a little extra, which I always greatly appreciate there, Eric.
That's a lot of fun. There's not too many people who are into this stuff, so it's always fun to speak to someone who has a similar passion.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that needs to change, right? I think more people, and I think it is happening as our sport grows. I think more and more people will get interested in where we actually came from as a sport, and the entire evolution and history of it. So I do think that's happening more and more, and will be happening more in the future. Definitely. Eric, I see chat is showering you with thank you messages. I see Eric Roussin is a real arm historian, both grip and arm wrestling. No arguments there, Emil. KL says Eric is the man for sure. Devon's forearm thanking Eric there. Kazazuri says thanks, Eric. Nice to have you here. Muscle Bike says arm historian setting the guest bar higher and higher, ever higher and higher. Yes, indeed, I agree there. It's been a great row of guests there. A great amount of guests I've had on. Really great people, every one of them. Arm historian is a pretty easy guy to do a show with. I'm sure people enjoy it. We try to keep a relaxed atmosphere here. And I think every guest I've had on so far has just been great. No complaints at any point. So people within the arm wrestling community keep surprising me. That it's not even surprising anymore at this point. I just expect people to be great, and it's always the case. So, Eric, once again, thank you. Can't thank you enough for donating some of your precious time and knowledge there. And I'll definitely be keeping my eye on all your grip exploits.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, everyone in the chat. I appreciate all the compliments. So thanks a lot.
For sure, Eric. Catch you later and chat. See you later too. Hope you have a wonderful Sunday, and join us next week as we get the final episode of the All-Time Prime Fantasy League. See you later, chat. Bye-bye.